Hi everyone, welcome to today's introduction session on the Digital Disruption course from Cambridge Judge Business School. Apologies about the delay. You'll see in the chat, put a little bit of our fault entirely. So yeah, we apologize for the confusion there, but we'll get things picked up as quickly as possible today. Thanks to a few of you who dropped me a note on LinkedIn, so I know what's going on. We weren't too sure if you were waiting there for us. So today is really all about giving you, first of all, a very warm welcome to this course, introducing you to the people you'll be hearing from. Although it might seem that way at the moment, you probably won't be hearing from me the most. So if my accent is already annoying you, don't worry. You won't be hearing from me too much the whole way through. Today is about telling you who you'll be speaking to throughout, a little bit of a gentle introduction to the course content. You already know a little bit of that, but we'll talk you through that, and then I'll do a live walkthrough of the Canvas platform. Pretty straightforward, but just to make sure we're all starting off on the right foot. So, as I said, first of all, introduction. So program leader, so likes of myself and Shakti, who I'll be introducing you to in a moment. Cambridge Judge faculty, a bit of an introduction as well, and a little bit about the course. What's the real purpose of this? What are we most excited about when it comes to sharing this fantastic content with you? Another aspect of that is the course participants. So you may already have noticed that there are some very impressive people taking this course. There's a huge amount to be learned from each other. So you'll learn a lot more about that throughout. I'm going to talk through the top level. Where have people come from? What kind of experiences do you have? And we'll keep that conversation going throughout the course. The next bit will be reasonably succinct because, well, we're all getting into the content now. We'll learn directly from it, but just a bit about the learning journey. What can you expect over these next couple of months? The calendar, grading and passing criteria, the webinar schedule, and I'll explain to you a little bit about what we want to do with these hour sessions. Now, how do they run? How do they run best? What do we, I suppose, need from you to make sure you get maximum value? Finally, program tools demos, so the learning platform on Canvas. While we're doing that, I think do just keep comments coming in the chat. I have my futuristic two-screen setup here, so I can keep an eye on what's going on there, so I can see Q&A and chat and that sort of thing. I understand there will be quite a lot of questions at this early stage. Please don't be shy. Just let me know if there's anything I'm running through that you're not clear on, you want more detail on, just let me know and we can do that. So if that all sounds good, we will make a start. So introductions, your program leaders. Well, I'll start with me. It kind of makes sense. By this stage, you might be wondering who this guy is, if he's ever going to stop talking. My name's Clark Boyds, and well, yeah, as I put on here, I actually went to Cambridge, St. Catherine's College. I work now as a digital strategy consultant. I spent about 8 or 9 years running digital marketing agencies, but more on the kind of business management side of things. For the last 2.5 years, I've been working in digital executive education, things like this. The role of the program leader is to help you get the most possible out of the learning experience. So any questions you have about content on the way through, you should be able to message us very quickly, as some of you have done on LinkedIn is a good place to reach me, and we'll lead discussions, we'll hold sessions with you. Really, it's all about maximizing the learning experience in any way that we can. So I will pass you over to Shakti. Hi, Shakti.
Hi, Clark, and thank you for the introduction. And my name is Shakti. I'm a master's graduate from MIT. I studied how to apply the human-centered design process to products and services, and how we can build better and faster products for our users. And before MIT, I was running a startup which provided drones as a service, and I learned a lot about um, disruptive technologies while I was doing this, and I'm very excited to be here and be a part of this course. I think this is some of the most exciting course content I've ever seen, um, and and welcome all of you. And I hope to interact with you during the rest of this course and hope to learn from you as much as um, I hope to add to the course. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you, Shakti. And third program leader here, my colleague Rob Turner. Yeah, Rob not able to join us for this session, but he will be very much present throughout. Rob is like one of the kind of leaders in the executive education space in digital marketing, digital transformation, all those kinds of things. I've been working with Rob for the last few years actually on a number of projects with Google and with Emeritus and with different universities. So really good pedigree and someone great to learn from as well. But of course, the Cambridge Judge faculty, I'm delighted to say that we have Kamal Munir with us today. So yeah, I'll pass you over to Kamal now just to make a little introduction. Hi, Kamal.
Hey, Clark. Thank you very much. So hi, everyone. And really exciting to be joining you all for a course on disruption. This is just the right time to be talking about disruption because it's all around us. And just about me, I've taught strategy at the Judge Business School, Cambridge, for about more than 18 years now. And within strategy, my interest mainly lies in disruption and how newcomers with barely any resources can come in and challenge hugely powerful industry giants. And what are the kind of common mistakes that these incumbents end up making? What are the kind of biases that creep into their decision making? And what are the kind of strategies that sort of these disruptors, whether they're fintechs or any other industry, can adopt to maximize their impact? So that's and that's recently I've been writing about the financial industry and how it's being disrupted by fintechs, and how the $131 billion video game industry is being disrupted by Google. And then so how some of the strategies that are out there, like Huawei's new operating system Harmony, for example, perhaps are not going to be as successful as some imagine. So both sides, what is successful, what works, and what doesn't work. And hopefully by the end of this course, you will have a very good idea of how you can disrupt other industries, how you can prevent yourself from being disrupted. And as your industry moves towards becoming an ecosystem or platformization, how do you, and you will know a sufficient amount about these things to not perhaps make the same mistakes that people have made earlier. So back to you, Clark.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Kamal. And I can say, having obviously been through it all, the course content is really, really fantastic. I hope you'll all agree once you get your teeth sunk into it. The other faculty on this, in fact, if you were on our previous session about the course and kind of pre-course information, Shaz Ansari was able to join us briefly whilst kind of in the middle of a speech. He's director of the MPhil in Innovation Strategy and Organization program, and he's a professorial fellow of St Edmunds College at Cambridge. So you'll be hearing from Shaz throughout as well. Okay, well, that's a little bit about us. I can see you're all dropping in where you're joining from. I could canvas from there where we're getting participants. That would take me all day. Yes, I see we've had South Africa, Norway, Moscow, been all sorts of places there. And I always find this bit completely fascinating to see how the breakdown is. I've done quite a number of these kinds of courses, and it does differ quite a lot. This one, 28% in the UK, where I'm based at the moment, but you can see we have a really good spread in a lot of other countries as well, kind of an even split from Australia, South Africa, India, Brazil, Russia as well. So I think the US is 20 something. That's a bit of a typo there, I think, to take us up towards our 100. But we will be sharing information about this as well throughout the course. You'll be getting to know each other as well. So at the moment, just a quick overview of where we're getting people from on this course, but I hope you'll agree it's a pretty exciting opportunity. We will open up discussions about broad topics, and one of the great things for me on these courses is seeing the different perspectives that people bring. So there will be new entrants to markets in, say, Canada versus Australia versus Brazil. There are new, say, fintech innovations that we just wouldn't know about in the UK that are happening in India, and it's always quite an illuminating part of this course as well. So yes, absolutely, we've created all of this content that I think will be fantastic and very comprehensive, but there's an extra layer where we can all learn from each other as well. So industries, yeah, we always get quite a few questions. Yes, there is 0.1% from Dominican Republic. Welcome, Christian. So we always get quite a few questions about the industry breakdown. You know, people want to sometimes work with people in their own industry. Other times people are just fascinated to see what's going on in something different. You know, they're perhaps insular in their own industry. So 16% from IT services and products, 15% consulting. So yeah, far and away, I suppose, the two most popular, but we have quite a lot of people from healthcare, education, and energy as well. And you can probably, from some rudimentary arithmetic, imagine there's a lot more that make up the 100% beyond there. So we'll share that information with you. You'll get to see where people are coming from. But as a top level introduction, IT, consulting, healthcare, education, and energy are the most popular areas people are coming from. In terms of work experience, it's another, I suppose, dimension to all of this as well. You can see the most common is kind of 16 to 20 years, 39% of people on the course. That's executive education. It's kind of what we come to expect. And 20% with 11 to 15 years experience, and then 21 to 25 is about 22%. So a vast repository of knowledge, both in terms of that depth of experience in business, but also across industries, across territories. And when you combine that with the stimulus material that we'll be providing, hopefully we'll have some very illuminating discussions the whole way through. So that's a little bit about us and a little bit about you. The learning journey. So
Clark,
thinking about
just once, could you this is something for all the attendees. If you go to your chat box and right above where you type your message, it says to, and if it says all panelists, only the panelists can see what you're typing. So go ahead and click on the drop-down menu and select all panelists and attendees. So that way all the other participants of the course can also see your comments. So this is just good practice for future webinars so that you can interact with your classmates as well. Great. Okay, thank you. No problem, Anna. All right, take it away.
Yeah, no, thank you for that Shakti, actually. Yeah, I'm commenting on these chats and no one else can see them. So yeah, thank you for that. And yeah, people are reusing them again. So the learning journey, the calendar, I hope you've had a chance to look at module 0. It's an intense course, and I'm sure that's very much what you've signed up for and what you're expecting and hoping for. Slightly gentle introduction because we're all getting to know each other, getting used to the platform, and people have busy schedules. You know, there are lots of other things going on, so kind of difficult to carve out the time at the beginning. So we have a bit of an introduction and familiarize yourself with the platform. I see, yeah, pretty much all of you have made your introductions on the discussion thread as well. We'll be opening a few more of those. Module 1, starting with one of the core themes, and I think Kamal has quite appropriately introduced this topic of dealing with disruption. What I find fascinating about these courses and most valuable is that we are going quite far beyond the hype and the buzzwords and the things that we hear, and even the sense of paranoia that can sometimes come with these topics, and thinking about it much more methodically and using frameworks that can help us identify new threats, know how to deal with them, and also seize opportunities. You know, where are those areas where someone is perhaps over-serving a market, where they're not meeting consumer needs, they're spending in areas they don't need to. What can that mean for us? So there's some really good models in there. I would say, especially in these early modules, if any of the topics that come up, any of the frameworks, whether it's a little bit confusing or perplexing and you want some further context, contact the likes of me and Shakti. We're here to help you with that. If you just, you find it fascinating, but you want to know a little bit more, you need more resources, or you just want to discuss it, again, please just get in touch with us. There will be discussion threads for all of that, but yeah, don't feel like there's no one there to kind of help you through all of that. So that's our role, really. Module 2, so then we look at, why are incumbents unable to deal with disruption? So the incumbents have all the resources, so surely they should be able to deal with this, not just financial, but they hire very intelligent people whose job it is to identify these threats. So why are they unable to do it? What does that mean for an incumbent, or for a disruptor? But what does it mean for an incumbent that you might work at, and how can you deal with that? I'll go through, I'll just look at a couple more of these. I don't want to go through all these in too much detail at this stage, because you will get access to them all anyway. So the third one, so dealing with disruption and changing competitive imperatives. This is where we're going to start getting into the, I suppose, more in-depth assignments, where you'll be assigned a role and be kind of imagining in 5 years in the future, 3 years in the future, rather, how you would pitch something to, say, investors. How would you deal with a new context? We'll be dealing in particular with autonomous vehicles, and how different companies might deal with that. So really taking from the theory to practice, working through it hands-on and pitching this, putting yourself in that role, which we've found is a very effective way to get these lessons across. So the next one, you can see we go into quite a few areas of platform strategy, quite a central lesson for this, one of the defining approaches, I suppose, of the last decade, and probably the coming one too. Companies like TiVo, how they've dealt with ecosystems and winning those, and then moving on and ending with business model innovation. You'll be designing your own business model, and we'll be grading that as well. But that's for another day. For the moment, we're dealing with disruption, looking at competitive threats, and all those areas. Moving on to the first assignment. So grading and passing criteria. Now, this section is obviously for discussion now. It's it's hugely important. I know, so it's something we're going to come back to throughout. This will be a bit of a takeaway. But I know we've had that question. You will receive these slides later on today, so you'll be aware of when these points are being released, what you need to do to pass the course, and so on and so forth. So don't worry too much about this at the moment, but the topics we'll be going through. So first, for week 1, is the trends that you have identified. So as I said, reasonably straightforward to get things moving. It's quite subjective. It's about your experience, your analysis, what you see in the market. Next, we'll move that to a broader level. So why can some companies adapt to disruption and not others? So you'll be looking at a couple of different industries and a few different companies, and trying to look at some who have adapted well, some who haven't, and what the commonalities are across different industries. All of these will be released on Friday. So today you'll be receiving the trends exercise. Next Friday, you'll be getting the discussion thread around companies adapting to disruption and not others. I think this is helpful to have, though, just so ahead of time you can see what's coming down the track and start thinking about some of that. You can see there are some points where you'll be sharing something you've put together. So you'll be putting together a strategy here, which is based around platforms. And towards the end, you'll be sharing a business model that you've designed. So we've been working on these things for quite a few years now to find the right blend of micro and macro levels, hands-on versus theory, and we believe this provides for an intense but achievable and comprehensive approach. Passing criteria will be 6 out of 8 points, 1 for each of these aspects here. And there's a huge amount of detail on how the scoring works as well on the system. We understand how important it is, so we try and give as much detail as we possibly can. Live webinars. This is another aspect that we think kind of brings a bit of life to the platform as well. So course orientation, Monday, 4th of October. Yeah, you'll see our point of confusion there. We're 1 p.m. BST. We weren't sure about the starting time. So week 0, we'll be doing this one exactly. Week 3, we'll be looking at dealing with disruption. So it's an exercise debrief. What we'll do there is we'll have a look generally. So we'll collate feedback from your assignments and identify trends. What are things people did well, what they've done more of, what would have been a way to score a little bit better. And time permitting, we may have a look at of them in detail, just so you get a real sense of how we're approaching these. Week 5, we'll be looking at platform wars, so winning from behind. We'll be joined by Professor Ansari there on the 6th of November. If you're not able to join these webinars, I understand the time can be difficult. We're trying to sort of a utilitarian approach of as many people as possible, trying to do as much good as we can. It doesn't work for some people. You can still submit your questions beforehand. We'll open discussion threads. They'll be answered, and then you'll be able to watch it back. So, you know, it's not the perfect solution, but you still get that attention. Week 8, we'll be looking at disruptive business models. So coming up to your final assignment, really trying to give you that extra push, a little bit of guidance, maybe even a few tips on what makes for a good assignment. And I mentioned at the outset that we'll be hosting the, apologies if there are any errors on those. Oh yeah, so obviously that should be Friday the 4th of October, not Monday the 4th. I mean, today is the Friday, isn't it? So yeah, apologies. Thank you for pointing that out. Good attention to detail there, Chris. It must just be a typo. So I mentioned that we have these office hours sessions, and they are purposefully broad in their nomenclature, I guess, because the idea is that we're able to help you with whatever it is you need most assistance with. So the scheduling will be coming out soon. I've agreed mine, so they should be coming out into your calendars. And the purpose is for us to go through that week's learnings, look at what's coming the next week. Is there anything you're concerned about? I'll bring a few things from, say, the news that week, new business developments that we can discuss that might shed light on what you've been learning, and yeah, try and keep it quite conversational. So I'll open a discussion thread beforehand where you can post questions or topics, concerns, and we can run through those. So we'll have, I think, about 4 or 5 of those, 60 minutes long, not obligatory. You know, some of the other things are a bit more pressing. If you don't have questions, then that's great. You must be learning everything right on time. But yeah, it's open for you, really. It's shaped by what you want to see. So it'll be with me, with Shakti, and with Rob. And finally, I see we have a few questions coming through. I will, in fact, I'll pause to look at the questions at the moment, because I'm going to do a little live walkthrough of the Canvas platform, which will break things up a little bit. So you can see some of the questions are coming through just to all panelists, some are coming through to all panelists and attendees, which is quite handy. So Amar asks, so where can we find related material to the course, journal articles, etc.? Yeah, it's a great question. I will be sending out a list of resources. I mean, they're mainly things that I've found really interesting that I think are related to the course. But yeah, I'll send that out to you today. So that's something to get us moving. But the point of that is as well for everyone else to add other resources as well. If there's something you think we've missed in there. And yeah, so around some books and things, yeah, we would definitely, we'll provide a few of those. No, none of it's obligatory, but you might find it interesting. So so we have a question here from Chica Bionda in Spain. So what about the importance of digital disruption in the agile/waterfall context in a company? Is it so important? Yes, so that's something we'll be addressing actually, is these core factors that distinguish businesses that are able to deal with disruption and those that struggle a bit. And part of it is, you know, the working processes that they have, you know, whether they are working to more of a laid out waterfall approach that leads them over the next 2 years, or whether they're a bit nimbler on their feet. So absolutely, it is very, very important, and we will be talking about that. So don't worry. So yeah, quite a few things about books and resources and things. So we will send out a few of those. What I'll do is I'll share my list with the other course leaders, and we'll put together a collated list for you, and then you can look through that. But yes, I see Shakti's on all the things anyway with the questions. So yeah, I'll let him get on with that good work. I'm going to go through a little bit of the Canvas platform, and then we have plenty of time. So keep your questions coming in while you've got us all on here ready to answer, and especially about the Canvas platform. So if there's something you're not too sure about, let me know. If you can still see my screen. And here we have the Canvas platform. I'm sure you've all been here already. You see my little account picture there, wearing a tweed blazer. Trying to look.
While we're waiting, I think hi Clark. A few people are asking about books that you may recommend. Professor Kamal, do you have any recommendations, or is that something we can send them as a follow-up email with some notes and suggestions?
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of books that can be read. And so I guess what I'll do is I'll prepare a list of the books and articles, and we will distribute them perhaps module by module.
Yes, that would be great.
And just to add to what Clark has already said, and Shakti, Clark, can you go back to the learning journey, the first, which shows us the sessions of the modules? And okay, can you go into slide view? Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, so I guess, I mean, the first thing, just to add to, Clark's introduction, we will start off by learning what disruption is. And like I said, it's all around us. So the whole purpose of this course is to make you think differently, make you see things differently. So you'll be able to see opportunities where you were not that you were not able to spot earlier on, and you will also be able to see threats where you would have normally missed them. And we do that through concepts as well as lots of cases and exercises and so on. And now, why is it important to know what disruption is, right? I mean, because on a general level, everyone kind of gets what disruption is, right? And when people, I mean, you know it when you see it. But in business, as you all know, most of you are highly experienced managers. In business, there are so many threats that there has to be some way of prioritizing those threats. Which ones do we pay attention to, and which ones do we not pay attention to? So, and when we are looking for opportunities or threats, where do we begin this process of analysis? So what we are going to see is that a lot of the disruptive models, they started out by recognizing the changing trends around us. And we start off with the broadest trends. And since that is also the first assignment, I'll say a little bit more about that. So for example, take IKEA, this giant furniture retail firm as well as manufacturer. The whole model is built up on certain trends. And the trends were that people are moving out post Second World War, people are moving out of their parents' homes. And they were much more mobile than their parents ever were. And they were going to urban areas where, in living in places that were really space constrained. And the existing furniture industry just did not take those trends on board. It was fragmented. It was made to regional taste. It was highly, they didn't actually bring scale into it. IKEA was the one who brought scale into it. And they also recognized that this entire wave of young people had relatively modern taste. The world was more becoming more global. And so they could actually create furniture which was not highly durable, but it was sleek, it was modern, and it was space efficient. Right? So all of that was built upon trends. And we can go upon, even a company like Kodak, its original model was built upon a particular trend that people are becoming more mobile because of developments that were taking place elsewhere, which was the construction of railroads and people beginning to travel more. So they made their cameras more portable, and then went on to essentially dominate the industry. So what are the trends around us? I mean, one or two examples that I've given is, sort of if you read about the number of people, young people who are applying for driving licenses in the United States, that number has been going down. gradually every single year. What does that mean? And which industry does it have implications for? More and more kids now are essentially choosing to communicate through devices rather than face to face. What implications does that trend have for which industries? So what kind of changes can we see? Then, after that, we move on to, okay, why are incumbents unable to deal with disruption? And the example I generally go back to, and one that I've written quite a lot about, is why Kodak was unable to see this disruption, because the first digital camera came out in 1981 and Kodak went bankrupt in 2010. They had 30 years to adapt. That's more than a quarter of a century. And there was no shortage of resources or of technology. And you're given 30 years and you still cannot adapt. So, that's for me is the really interesting question, because within that question are buried all kinds of insights about why incumbents are unable to see or adapt. Even when they're able to see, they're unable to adapt. What are the kind of belief systems that become highly entrenched? Now, what we are going to also see is that one of the big disruptions around us is platformization. So from product-centered competition to platform-centered competition. Now that, and we will discuss lots of concepts related to that, but that in itself is just a sea change. Right? And people find it, or incumbents find it extremely difficult to get their heads around that. So banks, I was just on a tour of Southeast Asia and talking to several banks. And it's not that they don't know what a platform is. It's also not that they can't see the fintech challenge. It's that a lot of them have an insufficient appreciation of what that challenge actually presents or represents for them. So how do platforms work? So we are going to actually, dig deep into that. So when your industry is shifting to platforms, how do you adapt to that? And then again, we also know that most platforms collapse within the first year. So what differentiates successful platforms from unsuccessful ones? So if you do start building a platform, how do you maximize the chances of its success? Can you actually come from second position, third position, or from behind? And we have examples, MySpace, Facebook being one, where people have come from behind to overtake the much bigger incumbents. So how do you do that? And finally, of course, right, how do you construct new business models? And this is where Shaz is going to come in, and he's going to sort of, go into detail into how do you build a business model, because there are lots of issues concerned with that. For example, think about Netflix. Netflix used to email people DVDs, and then it went into streaming. So one of the problems, amongst many, is that you already have an existing clientele who basically signed a contract with you to be mailed DVDs. Now, how do you shift that existing clientele over to your streaming service? So do you give them a completely new contract? Or do you raise the fee that they were paying, and do you let them go? So how do you manage this transition? So it's as you can tell, I'm really excited about this course, and I really look forward to working with you on discussing all these things. And the objective at the end of the day is to make you look at the changes that are taking place around us with differently and through a different lens. So hopefully that'll mean that we are going to see opportunities around us, and hopefully profitable ones, and we're also going to avoid making the kind of mistakes that have been made before. Back to you, Clark.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you very much, Kamal. I think that adds a lot of color to this, and really brings together the kind of narrative, I suppose, of the course and where we're moving from and to learning journey, as it were. So I'm going to go back into the Canvas. I saw a few comments coming through, people a couple of issues getting into the app and things like that. And we do have support on with us today, so they should be able to help with any. I'm going to do a bit of a walkthrough. I understand quite a lot of it is really straightforward, but just so we're all, well, quite literally on the same web page with this. So your homepage should look a little bit like this. You have your recent announcements up top, which should help you get through. Hopefully we'll be starting at the same time that you think on the courses. I promise you that was a one-off. Down here we can see a little introduction, so quite clear. Now you have some buttons here that can help you go through. So you can go to the program outline, passing criteria, and meet the faculty. Those have been put there like any sort of website because they're the most popular ones that people tend to look for. You can see here coming up on the right-hand side, so a lot of little reminders of things that are coming up for you. So course introductions coming up, and you can click through to your calendar here as well. Some of these options won't be available to you because obviously things like course analytics and that. In fact, I'll put it into student view. It's very similar. So we're definitely, you don't have those things of course analytics, unfortunately, but you can see all of these points in here. As I said, they're quite straightforward for week 0 and week 1. So test your understanding of things like plagiarism and all that. Make sure we're all on the same page with that. But I'm sure we are. So there is access to the app. Again, if there are any issues with that, do keep letting us know. This is a good time to address those. We want to make sure you can get onto the platform and start working through the videos. Really, homepage there. It's maybe a lower new once we get through into modules. So you'll always have the orientation up at the start, so syllabus, meet the faculty, and so on. We have some frequently asked questions here because helps to address some of those are similar things that tend to come up. Hopefully. Sorry, just reading a few of your comments, make sure we're addressing everything. So you can see all of these points in here around the learning platform, meet your program leaders, introduce yourself. Every week there will be another week of content released on a Friday. So we should be getting week 1 coming through. We're in week 0 still, sort of officially. And those will all come through. So you can click and watch the videos in here. You'll find your assignments, all those sorts of things. If there are any queries at all around the assignments or the brief or the way things are phrased or how you should submit your responses, get in touch. I'll show you where to do that in a moment. So next on we have the webinars. Now this will give you a bit of a schedule around what's coming up, but we'll also host the slides in here as well. So you can click at the top here, move through to the different ones that we'll be hosting, and it should have a link to the live and the slides will be posted here. These will be posted well today, I would imagine, always within 24 hours, but we try and get it done on the same day. So yes, you can see here, you can click through, and that was one of the questions: when's the next kind of content webinar? 25th of October, so 3 weeks today. Have to check my mental arithmetic there. So discussions, this is where a lot of the activity will happen. You can see, well, message from me, welcome. I'd welcome about 50 times now, but you can't say it enough. Introduce yourself. So pretty much everybody has gone through and done that. There will be more coming up every week. You'll get it on your to-do list. It'll be in your announcements, and you'll get reminders about the discussions you have to join. And it's always good to come back and see what other people have posted and join in on those as well. Announcements. This is a good place if you just want to make sure you're up to speed with everything and you know what's going on in the course. I would recommend coming through to announcements. Not too much to announce at this stage. Just reminders about this course and about this webinar, and you'll get quite a few more coming through there over the coming weeks. This is the bit that I think most of that you'll get from just clicking around, and you'll familiarize yourself with where things are. And if you do have any issues though, please come into this tab here. So it's under courses, you'll get support. You can, if it's something quite dynamic and quick, I'd say please do just come to, say, either me or Shakti or Rob through the inbox. You can just click and select us, even through LinkedIn. If it's just something really quick and you need a quick answer. If it's something a bit more structured, then please do come in here. Then you can, if this is working, select from the list. So it's pretty straightforward, but yeah, what are you requesting assistance with? Submissions, extensions, accessing materials, and everything else. So pretty much covers a lot, doesn't it? That just means anything logistical. So it may be the case that something has come up at work or something personal has happened and you can't submit an assignment on time. That's okay, you know, we understand, but just let us know through here, because we need to plan things on our end. So select this for anything logistical, whether it's, you know, an upcoming webinar, what's the time going to be, all that sort of stuff. Anything to do with course content and assignment requirements. So content focused queries, click this one here, and then anything around enrollment, payment, or certificates. It's important just because if you go through, say, the Canvas inbox, it's not sure it'll go to the right person. Here, it'll come through the ticket system, and yeah, it allows us just to make sure we're getting things back to you as quickly as you need them. So click here and then just put details of it, and you can put a supporting file, and that will create a ticket. So you'll know when we're getting back to you on that. And I think from that perspective, apart from just the so it'll just be back to my calendar in this instance, which has a lot in it. So everything should be in there for you as well. I think that's about it for Canvas at this stage. The main points are, first, to kind of familiarize yourself with it. Make sure there are no issues with anything on your side. We can fix all of those for you. Any queries that do come up, if it's really quick, you know, I would say just kind of, from my perspective anyway, just contact me through the inbox or through LinkedIn if it's an immediate exchange. But otherwise, go through the ticket system, and then it'll go to either us or to support as well. So I will bring it back. We can have a bit of time for some questions, see if there's anything you'd like to discuss at this stage. Yeah, I think we have a few. Yeah, so from Teamy, so what times are the seminars? I have them as 12:30 GMT in my diary, but the slide said 1 p.m. Yeah, we will 100% get all of that cleared up. Yeah, I think there was a bit of crossed wires on that one today, but we will make sure from now on we'll all be on the same page with the times, and yeah, there'll be no further issues. But thank you for raising that. As Danica says, so duration of webinars would be nice to know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we will be planning to share that. It'll be either 60 or 90 minutes, and we'll always let you know ahead of time. But yeah, it's a good point to raise, because otherwise, yeah, you don't know don't know how long you're going to be on the line, do you? Yeah, that's a really good question from Veronica. One we typically get at this stage, and I understand why. Do you have an example of what you expect as an assignment submission? Yeah, so we will have things like the office hour sessions are to discuss that sort of thing, because I understand, especially, you know, a new course, not sure what the expectations are. The brief might just say something like, you know, write 1,000 words about this strategy, and little things around the structure are obviously going to be important. So we'll discuss those things in our office hour sessions, and yeah, feel free to reach out to your course leaders about that. You can even, you know, run things by, if it's, you know, the template that you're planning to use or the outline, feel free to share that, and we can say whether it's, you know, kind of on the right track or not. Obviously, we can't grade things as we're going, but if it's really just broad questions to help you get it down on paper, then, you know, that's what we're here for. So yes, we will address that one, Veronica, but thank you for raising it. Yeah, we have a few questions on kind of, I suppose, logistical things and communications. I'll leave those to support. Thank you for raising those. We'll make sure we get those done. So a question from Tim: can I confirm that we will have access to the live webinars after the fact? Yes. So that's another thing. Yeah, I should have mentioned that. You will receive the recording and all the slides. So yes, absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Shakti. typing as I speak.
Are there any questions for me at all?
There is one question, Professor Kamal. It's in the questions tab. I'll read it out. And I don't see the participant's name. It's number. But the question reads, where and how do we look for the foreseen, unforeseen, and prevent those threats? I mean,
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Shakti?
right. Could you, this is in the Q&A, and it's not, I don't think I completely understand what the participant is trying to say here, but the question reads, where and how we would look at to foreseen and prevent those threats. I think they're asking how do they look for unforeseen threats and how would they prevent them?
Right. I mean, so there's no one place where all the unforeseen threats are sort of, hiding. So you will have to develop a way of sort of looking around you so that you begin to slowly develop this knack of seeing these things that could essentially turn into threats. And by discussing, sort of hundreds of examples, what we'll do is we'll become good at that process. So when we see an industry changing, we'll be able to see exactly, well, first of all, we'll be able to see change where others are unable to see change. Secondly, we'll be able to pick on certain dynamics of that change, which others might miss. And we have examples, tons of examples of very, very, sort of well-resourced companies that have completely missed huge changes in their environment, or how the competitive dynamics were changing. And so when they see the first module, the first video, some of these questions are going to become clear. And otherwise, we can address them later, but I don't want to sort of, go into what they're going to watch later on anyway.
Great, thank you. Do we have any more questions for Professor Kamal?
Yeah, I think we have. Yeah, we have one in the Q&A here, Kamal,
Right.
actually. So it says, will we also go into the challenges of implementing strategies, for example, in a digital transformation, overcoming the cultural mindset is often one of the biggest challenges. Will we address that challenge?
Sorry, is that for me, Clark?
Yeah, we go into the challenges of so when implementing strategies, one of the big challenges is overcoming the cultural mindset, changing cultural mindset. Is that something that we will address during this course?
Absolutely. And, I'm going to use a couple of detailed case studies to illustrate how such a mindset forms and how one can guard against that. Because, and we will also do an exercise, right, in this course where you will assume the roles of incumbents and of new entrants. And you will then, sort of experience how these mindsets actually form and what kind of biases they bring into your decision making. So certainly. And there's also another question here from Christian, who's talking about customers, and and he wants me to dive a little bit more into that. This is actually something that I just recently wrote about fintechs. So if you're a bank, really nothing else is going to suffice other than reinventing banking. Okay? Now, if you want to reinvent banking, so I was talking to this rather large bank, which gets a lot of its profits from wealth management, right, for high net worth individuals. And so a lot of them are maybe over 60 years old. And now how tech savvy, not to be ageist here, but there are demographics. My teenage son, for example, is a lot more tech savvy than I am. And so these kids are basically, born digital. They're digital natives. And so what we can expect from that customer segment is very different from what we can expect from, sort of somebody who was born in let's say, 1960, and so on. So how do we address these transitions? It's certainly something that we are going to go into.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, we have a couple more questions, ones that we'll be discussing very directly in the course material, and we'll be going into. So maybe we'll not right now. Yeah. So any other question? Anything, whether it's for Kamal about broader course material, about getting started, anything at all? Please let us know. Anything else that's up here that's a bit more logistical, we'll take as a note, and we'll address that separately. So don't worry if yeah, you think I haven't got to yours. We have noted them all, so we will definitely get bottom of it. So yeah, anything to do with Canvas login, yeah, more of the logistical side. I'd love to talk through that, but I'm not the Canvas expert, apart from the content that's on there. The technical bit of it, I'm not too up to speed with, but we'll see if can assist you with that. So thank you for raising it. Yeah, a few questions about this session. Yeah, it's the introductory webinar, so it really is yeah, to get you up to speed with what's expected from the beginning, bit of an introduction to the course material, and yeah, that's the thing. Make sure we've answered all of your questions, so yeah, you haven't missed anything. Haven't missed any lectures. I think we've had that point come up a few times. Yeah, no lectures today, apart from when I really get on a roll. Yeah, so you have the schedule. Everything will be sent out to you quite far in advance, especially now we're really kicking off the course. So with your first classes and everything will all be sent out. I don't know off the top of my head, so I don't want to, yeah, I don't want to say anything that's incorrect. But yeah, I think we've time for maybe, yeah, a couple more questions. But yeah, we can always close things up a little bit. Yeah, so actually,
Clark, there's a very interesting question from Chen, who's asking, what's your opinion in terms of digital disruption in kids' education? Okay. And as you pointed out early on, there are lots of people from the education sector amongst the participants, right? And so they might know actually more about that, and I would love to sort of, hear what their thoughts are. But yes, I mean, because, when we designed the curricula and we designed, sort of how we were going to educate our kids, we didn't have Google. Okay? And so now, I mean, given the fact that you can pretty much Google anything these days, should we be designing tests the way we have been designing them for generations? Should we be teaching the kind of factoids and, I mean, sort of trivia, dates and history and on and so forth, that, which we have been doing? Or, and now that we have these great IT facilities, I mean, there's a completely new way of studying, say, history, let alone, sort of other subjects, because, I mean, take, you can study Chinese history, both as, I mean, with a classroom full of people from mainland China, from, sort of other parts of the world. You can study, South Asian history with all the South Asian sort of students, from the different South Asian countries present. Right? And so we can really sort of, take learning much further than what we have been able to accomplish. All these, and in the process accomplish something much bigger, which is to build a transnational sort of community and bonds and common understanding, and hopefully sort of decrease conflict. So yeah, I mean, there are lots of ways in which education is going to change. Sorry, Clark, I cut you off there.
No, I'm glad you did. I had messed that in actually. Yeah, Yeah, probably pick that one throughout. I should say as well, one of the things, it's good to think about those industries now, because throughout the whole process, even if we're looking at other areas, as Kamal has mentioned, it's good to kind of think these things through and apply them to a different area, and try and use these tools to analyze potential opportunities and threats and all those sorts of things. So yeah, we can probably return to the education one. It's one of the most interesting ones throughout all of the course. Let's see, we have a question from Gavin. Is Emeritus a good example of providing a new platform for education? I would like to think so. But yeah, I mean, it's a great question. There are, I mean, the interesting thing, because I've worked with quite a lot of similar companies. I won't go into that sort of thing necessarily, but it's really interesting how innovative you can be with lots of different things, and also how in some ways you have to remain faithful to original structure. So it's quite interesting. There's a balance there. And we've been doing quite a lot of courses and really trying to take on feedback. And I'd like to think we're at a stage where it's quite refined at this point. Because there are lots of things that you try on online platforms, and what you're seeing, I think, is a very refined version of it, where we've realized what works for participation. It's about adult learning as well. Just mentioned kids education, but the way adults learn is obviously very different, and it's not just about theory, not just about practice. It's getting that blend, but also there's the online element. How do you get people working together in different areas? How much should they work together? Is technology good enough to make that work in a way we need it to? So yeah, I personally would like to think it blends a lot of those things very well, with things like the academic rigor that you expect from the institutions you're learning from, with the accessibility that you would get from technology as well. So it manages to keep all of the important elements of those points, whilst using what we have available to us today to bring that education to more people. But I mean, I'm aware that I was hardly going to say no to that, was I? But yes, I think it is a good example of that. And Kamal, it's up to you. There are a few questions about very specific industries and things. We could be here for quite a while.
One question about healthcare from Sylvia. And yes, I mean, certainly an industry, a sector which is ripe for disruption, and it's gradually happening, right? I mean, so a lot of it is manifesting itself in the form of wearable technologies, with sort of IT-based online medical advice and diagnosis and so on and so forth. But what are the challenges? Well, if you look in the US, you look in the UK, a lot of the challenge seems to be political. Right? So if the NHS were to try to, let's say, reconfigure itself, right? I mean, the NHS has a problem. It's not a secret, right? I mean, about 6 out of 10 NHS hospitals incur a deficit every year. So which means, they have X budget and they have X plus something, which is their costs. And every year, so that deficit keeps increasing. How do you decrease that? Well, I mean, it's very difficult to close down hospitals in any MP's constituency, right? So, and that means that it's very difficult to reconfigure the healthcare system. Automation, of course, I was talking to some doctors who run the NHS, and they were saying to me that, it's our patients still like us to come and hold their hands and ask them how they're doing, and they want the nurse to come in and take their temperature or blood pressure and sort of care for them and so. And I was telling them, listen, that might be true for us, but if we look at the teenagers around us, they think human contact is an intrusion. Right? They'd rather communicate through devices. And because that's their form of communication most of the time anyway, and that has enormous implications for healthcare. So again, you will see that the healthcare system is not an exception. The same dynamics, the same patterns, are observable there that are in very different industries. So And so, I mean, we can go industry after industry, and you will begin to see, sort of the patterns repeating themselves.
An interesting question there from you saying, disruption is new. Suppose quite a classic economic force. We've experienced it in previous eras, but what makes it different this time around?
So we have experienced disruption in previous. What makes disruption this time around different? Okay, so that's an interesting question in the sense that the Industrial Revolution was a big disruption, right? The automobile revolution was a big disruption. The telecom revolution was a big disruption. But this time around, what we are dealing with is the digital revolution. And the biggest impact of the digital revolution is, first of all, it has knocked down barriers to entry into many industries. I mean, take retail, for example. Last year, if I recall correctly, about 5,500 retail stores closed down in the US. In the first 3 months of this year, 6,500 retail stores closed down in the US. So it's increasing exponentially. Why is that? Because the barrier to entry, because of online delivery channels and so on, have basically changed the economics of the industry. Secondly, industry boundaries have essentially collapsed as a result of digitization. So I could ask you, what industry is Apple part of? What would you say? Because Apple makes computers, it makes phones, it is creating content for television and film now. It's going to go into streaming. It makes smart watches, which are increasingly sort of becoming, well, essentially health diagnostic devices. So what industry is it? So we traditionally competed within the confines of an industry. So banks knew how to compete with other banks, right? But banks are struggling to compete with fintechs because the competition is completely asymmetric there. They don't know how to compete with these guys who don't have any assets. They don't know how to compete with these guys, who don't have any sort of legacy contracts or any baggage, right? These guys have nothing to lose. And banks have a lot more challenges. So, which is why the average lifespan of Fortune 500 companies is shrinking dramatically. Okay? So here are just, sort of a couple of things that are different this time around.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, quite a few people agreeing with you there, especially on the Apple example. Yeah, we had a couple of questions around content and people asking, what will we receive, what's going to happen the next couple of days. So the material for week 1 is all going to be released on Canvas, should be today, which will give you all the videos, assignments, discussions and everything. And every Friday there'll be more material released on there. So yeah, that should all make very clear, with a few people asking, what will we get between now and October 25. Yeah, it is a bit drip fed, through the program, but don't worry, there'll be plenty to keep you occupied very, very soon. And yeah, we've time to take maybe a couple more questions. I saw one just a little moment ago, and yeah, Kamal, if you don't mind, I think this question was addressed towards you from Amar. What is the impact of public policies in the acceleration or slowing of digital transformation? You touched on that political element a little bit. So a couple of people asking, yeah, for a few thoughts on, so if you don't mind, what's the impact of public policies on digital transformation?
I mean, that question could be framed in a number of, sort of different ways, right? Because there are a number of different ways of looking at that broad dynamic, and which is the intersection of public policy and our understanding of it, and the possibilities that digital disruption opens up. And so when we are discussing network effects in particular, we are going to come across this question, and we'll discuss it in some depth. in the sense that the way platforms expand is, in many industries, it's winner take all. Right? So they form a monopoly. But traditionally, our approach towards monopolies has been to break them up. So when a particular app or a particular software or an operating system and begins to monopolize a particular industry, is that still the best solution for that? And the incumbents would argue, no, it's not, because these are not your typical monopolies that are going to abuse. This actually creates value. A large platform creates value for all the people who are part of that platform. So yes, they may be locked in, but they're also benefiting. So public policy, as we speak, is being rethought in all this. And as you can see, the public policy reactions in the US towards big tech are very different from public policy reactions in Europe towards the same organization, the same phenomenon. So which means that there is no one right answer right now, or there's no consensus right now. And in China, of course, there's much more of a collaboration between the state and technology companies, and and also restrictions for other apps and other operating systems like Android, or not Android, but sort of Google and so on and so forth, and Amazon and so it's a very interesting question, but I think the answer is unfolding right now. So what we can do is we can discuss at some point what are the different ways of looking at it, and we will touch upon this when we talk about network effects, and maybe I will include some readings on this too on the list that I'm going to send to you for that module. And but yeah, very interesting question.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, Kamal. I think we'll start wrapping things up for today's webinar. I think we've covered much of what we were. Still a few questions. If I seem disconcertingly casual about some of them, is because I know we will address them naturally through the unraveling of the course. It's all fine. I think there are a few points though that we could still address. I had a few questions about the assignment for week one. All the details will be up on Canvas, but it's really about just identifying 3 broad trends and going through 2 different industries that you think will be affected. So it could be something like the move to remote work or something like that, and how that might affect people. And we're trying to get people to think a little bit beyond, as Kamal has been saying. You look at someone like Kodak, the classic example, and how the invention of railways might affect someone like them. So we're trying to think about those kind of complements to a big trend. So that will be a lot clearer because they're all.
Sorry for interrupting, Clark, but some of the contemporary sort of trends are, so what Greta Thunberg has, successfully started, right? Just flight shaming. So people are actually embarrassed to now, an increasing number of people are embarrassed to admit that they're taking a transatlantic flight, right? And only for 1 day or 2 days and so on and so forth. So is that going to develop into a trend? And if so, what are the implications of that?
Yeah, we haven't really got that much of a word for it in English, but I know they have their own words in Swedish and German and everything for flight shaming. We haven't done it quite so well just yet, but yeah, no, it's a great point. So really thinking about points like that, there will be a discussion this week as well. Yeah, get in touch with us around all of that. But there are about 8 or 9 videos this week as well that will really introduce you to all of that. So you should be in a good position to complete that assignment at the end of the week. Any queries, anything about logistics and all those points, please do keep them coming through where I pointed on Canvas. If you have any issues with the platform, do let us know. We need those ironed out very quickly so we're all able just to get on with the learning and discussion. But thanks so much, everyone. It's to see so much contribution. I love seeing so many questions coming through. Everyone's so keen to get involved at an early stage. Really excited to get this course kicked off. I can't wait till you start seeing all the content on there, because there are some absolutely fantastic ideas on there, and lots of food for thought. So I'm looking forward to being, I suppose, your tour guide through all of this. Thanks so much, Shakti, for joining us today. Thanks, Kamal, as well. We really appreciate you taking the time to join and being so gracious to answer all of the questions. And yeah, have a wonderful weekend, everyone. I'll look forward to speaking to you all very soon, and just how I help you most. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.